All right, yeah! Thank God for fantasy football. I'm Buster Brown, and the show, it's called Redemption Rehab. And if you tuned in today, it's for one reason. It's because you want to start winning championships in fantasy football. Here we are on our website, fantasyfootballredemptionrehab.com. And today, we're talking about our split backfields at running back. We've already completed our video on our workhorse running backs, which we'll highlight here. Just go to our website and check it out. Today, we need to know more about split backfield. These running backs are not the workhorse running backs that I described in my other video, which I just mentioned. If you take a running back that is in a split backfield, he's got to split carries with another running back. Maybe at the goal line, might cost you some points, especially if the other running back gets the touchdown. Maybe it's the quarterback that runs the ball in. That's why we call it a split backfield. These are guys that you can get throughout your draft. They usually go anywhere from second, third, fourth, fifth. Who knows what round they're going in? They're not like your workhorse running backs. Remember what I said in that video. Workhorse running backs are valuable for one reason. It's about volume. Volume is king in fantasy football, and workhorse running backs get all the volume. Split backfields, they got to share the volume with other players. So buckle up, get out your popcorn, and let's head over to the chalkboard
and check out the facts.
Okay, here we are, checking out our split backfield running backs that you have to consider in your upcoming fantasy football drafts in 2020. And we're starting out by going to our two favorite websites that we have to talk about. And on the left side is rtsports.com. They're going to list basically the depth chart for every team we talk about today. And on the right side of the screen is Fantasy Football Calculator, and they're going to show us where some of these players are going in your upcoming fantasy football drafts in 2020. Let's hop into it and see what's going on with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills have a good running back who's in his second year, Devin Singletary. He's in a split backfield because he's got a veteran, TJ Yeldon, who is not his handcuff, and a rookie, Zach Moss, who they drafted out of like Utah State or Utah. And he's a good running back. We'll see if he can, adapt to the NFL regiment. They didn't exactly have a off season to prepare this guy because of COVID-19. So I'm not sure how well he'll do early in this season, but he does have talent. And if you look at their wide receivers here, they've got several good ones. John Brown, top 20 wide receivers. So is Stephon Diggs to go along with a quarterback, Josh Allen, who is not a very accurate quarterback, but he does like to run the ball. He's got 500-600 yards rushing in the last 2 years. He's scored 16-17 touchdowns rushing the ball, besides all the passing touchdowns he has. So one of the reasons we call this a split backfield is because you got Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and Josh Allen, all capable of running for a lot of yards in any single game and rushing the ball for touchdown. Other things I like about this team, as we talked about, is the wide receivers, Josh Brown, Stephon Diggs, the Cole Beasley, possession receiver, and these three guys here are all good wide receivers. So they definitely have a good wide receiving core. Tight ends, not high on any of these guys. I would not draft any of them in any of my leagues. But, they brought them in basically because they like to run the ball and they can block. And when it comes around the end zone, they can catch a pass. And that's why you got these guys as their tight ends. And their offensive line, as you can see right here, definitely in that B- area. It's above average. A lot of these guys have been together for 4 years, 3 years. They just brought in this guy, Brian Winters, from the Jets, because the Jets had a salary cap issue and cut him. I think that he's going to add to that right guard position. So these guys are going to blow people off the ball, and they're going to be able to run the ball. So I do like their offensive line, and I think that Buffalo is a playoff team this year. Question is running backs. Whether Devin Singletary's worth the pick. So we'll check that out over on Fantasy Football Calculator to see where we think he should be going, where we should be taking his handcuffs, because his handcuff is important. So let's head over there and check out the facts. Okay, here we are on Fantasy Football Calculator, checking out the average draft position in a 12-man PPR league for the Buffalo Bills, Devin Singletary. He's in a split backfield. He's competing with carries with Zach Moss, maybe T.J. Yeldon. He's definitely competing with carries for Josh Allen, who runs for 500-600 yards a year, has 8-9 rushing touchdowns a year, and Devin Singletary's in his second year and has a lot to prove. Last year he was competing with Frank Gore. He's got a lot to prove this year behind a good offensive line. As you can see here, he's going at the end of the 4th round. I never would take him any earlier than this because I do like Mark Ingram, David Montgomery, and Jonathan Taylor as much or more. I definitely like Raheem Mostert, and I like Kareem Hunt probably all better than I like Devin Singletary. Only because he hasn't proven a thing yet. He's still a young kid, and he's got competition. If you can get Devin Singletary in the mid-5th rounds, that's what I would do. I would make him fall to me in a round he shouldn't be in, but I would definitely not reach for him because he's not worth it. As far as other players on this, as you can see here, this is where some of the other players are going. Stephon Diggs, his quarterback Josh Allen in round 9, along with his handcuff Zach Moss. So if you take Devin Singletary, you're going to want to take Zach Moss, and he's over here in round 9. And if you really want a good pick as a sleeper, come way down here. John Brown's a speed burner. He's dealing with some health issues, usually hamstring. He's got this thing, sickle cell anemia, that he has to deal with, blood disorder. So he's got issues that have kept him out of games. But I'll tell you what, you get a top 20 receiver in round 13 like John Brown, pull the trigger. That's why I like this team. I think they're a playoff team. They have a chance to win their division. So let's head over to back to RT Sports, and let's check out another split backfield that I really like, and it's the Cleveland Browns. Okay, here we are checking out the split backfield with the Cleveland Browns. As you can see here, the number 1 starter in Cleveland's a really good player. Almost led the league in rushing last year behind a good offensive line. It's Nick Chubb. Problem is with Nick Chubb, even though he almost was the NFL leading rusher last year, he's got another top 10 running back on the same team. He's had his issues, still playing in Cleveland. Doubt he'll be on Cleveland next year, so he's got a lot to prove. I think when he leaves Cleveland this year, at the end of the season, he's going to go to a contender and be a top 10 running back in the NFL. That's why we like him this year. He's got a lot to prove. That's why it's a split backfield. These two guys are going to be carrying this team behind a really good offensive line. Let's take a look at that. Here's their offensive line. Jared Willis Jr. is a rookie out of Alabama. He's their left tackle. He's got a lot to learn. So by the end of the season, look for him to pick up steam. Joe Bitonio is a former All-Pro. So is J.C. Tretter. And so is Jack Conklin, who they got from Tennessee. The right guard is probably their one weak spot. Don't be surprised if this kid Wyatt Teller or Willie Wright, maybe even Chris Hubbard comes in and plays well at right guard. They're going to be able to move the ball on the ground this year. But what I really like about this team is the receivers. Let's check that out. As you can see up here, Odell Beckham Jr., definitely top 10 receiver in the league, followed up by Jarvis Landry. Gotta say he's, top 20. He's coming off an injury, both these guys are, but I think they're going to be healthy by week 1. And at the time we're recording this, both guys are in camp and both guys have been practicing. So I look for them to be able to play week 1 of the NFL season. Rest of these guys are pretty good and can fill in no problem when these two are injured. What I really like about these guys is these two tight ends. David Njoku didn't exactly have a great year last year, mostly because of poor coaching. And Austin Hooper came over with a big contract in Atlanta, and he can catch the ball. So don't be surprised if they throw the ball a lot to the tight end. And Baker Mayfield's got a lot to prove. Put a little too much weight on last year, lost a little bit of weight. He's going to come into camp ready to go with the new head coach that they got from Minnesota. And I'll tell you right now, look for the Browns to make some noise with this offensive team. So let's head over to Fantasy Football Calculator and check out where some of these guys are going. Okay, here we are on fantasyfootballcalculator.com. And as you can see right here, Nick Chubb, I thought might have been a first-round pick, but he's falling at this point on this date in August, mid-second round, mostly because you can see down here, Kareem Hunt. If you take Nick Chubb, you better have Kareem Hunt on your team as his handcuff. These guys are going to split along a lot of basically time in the backfield, so having both of them on your team is important. I would even consider playing them both at the same time. That's how good this team is going to be this year. I do like them both, but as you can see, Nick Chubb, late second round, Kareem Hunt, late 5th round. That's what you're going to have to figure out. Can you get Nick Chubb early 2nd round and Kareem Hunt in the 5th round? I think you can, but it's important you do. You can see here Odell Beckham's going early 3rd round and late 3rd round, and Jarvis Landry down here late 7th round. I'll tell you right now, that's a good place for Jarvis Landry. If you can get him there, that'd be a big pick. And you can see right here, Baker Mayfield and Austin Hooper going somewhere after the break if you're in a 20-round draft in round 12. I do like Cleveland this year. I do like Kareem Hunt. I do like Nick Chubb. If you get them both, you did a good thing. You might be able to play them both often. Let's go take a look at another split backfield we really like over in Denver. Okay, here we are looking at the Denver Broncos split backfield with Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, and possibly Royce Freeman. Look, Melvin Gordon came over from the Los Angeles Chargers. He's a great running back. Not sure he's Hall of Fame material, Fantasy Football Hall of Fame for sure, and he's still got some gas left in the tank. Phillip Lindsay put up 1,000 yards last year, scored probably 8, maybe 9 touchdowns, so he was not a bad player. So there's going to be some competition there, and Royce Freeman is no slouch. That's why I kind of look at this as a split backfield. They've got a young quarterback in Drew Lock. Look, the last 5 games of the season, he was pretty damn good. So don't be surprised if Drew Lock can throw the ball, because he's got some good wide receivers. Cortland Sutton, he's going in the top 4 or 5 rounds of the Fantasy Football League drafts. Jerry Jeudy's a rookie out of Alabama. He's a player. Wherever he's being drafted this year, he will be drafted higher next year. KJ Hamler's a rookie. He can play ball. He's more of a possession slot receiver. And I also like this Deshaun Hamilton guy. He's a player. But don't be surprised if Noah Fant turns out to be a top 10 tight end this year. This kid's out of Iowa. Iowa turns out tight ends, and this kid, it looks to me like he can play. So keep an eye on him. And the offensive line here, I'm going to give it a C-. It's below average. Bowles has shown that he can stay healthy, maybe he can play left tackle. And the rest of these guys are just average. The right tackle here is not the guy who ended last year. The right tackle opted out because of COVID-19, so they got some issues on the line. But I do like Melvin Gordon. He's still Melvin Gordon, who put up decent numbers last year. And Phillip Lindsay was 1,000-yard back. So let's head over and check out where they are on Fantasy Football Calculator and where they're going in drafts. Here we are on Fantasy Football Calculator. And the first Denver Bronco on the board, which is not good, is in the late 3rd round, Melvin Gordon. Look, if you go wide receiver early, Melvin Gordon would be a good pickup late in the 3rd round. And as you can see down here, Phillip Lindsay, who is the handcuff over here to Melvin Gordon, is going somewhere in that late 7th, early 8th round. and you can get him, so it's not too much capital spent on the handcuff for Melvin Gordon. And as you can see down here, Jerry Jeudy and Noah Fant are going later in drafts. I do like both of them. Might be worth a flyer. So let's head over at this point and check out another team I really like that has a split backfield, and it's the Detroit Lions. Okay, here we are checking out the Detroit Lions split backfield between Kerryon Johnson, DeAndre Swift, and Bo Scarborough. These guys are, it's a tough backfield. You may want to kind of avoid it. We don't know if Kerryon Johnson's going to stay healthy. He's not able to every year. DeAndre Swift is a rookie who I really like coming out of Georgia. And Bo Scarborough right here could get the carries at the goal line, although he only had 1 touchdown last year. If you look at the quarterback here, Matthew Stafford, kick and fling the ball. He had a back injury last year. I hear he's healthy. Got some family issues. Wife's been really sick, but I think they may be moving on from that. So he can still throw the ball. They got some really good wide receivers in Kenny Golladay. It's probably the first Detroit Lion off the board this year. And Marvin Jones is a veteran wide receiver who regularly plays well in certain games, and then other games he's just missing. So he might be worth a flyer at wide receiver if you've got 5 or 6 and you want to add one. I'd consider him. I don't think Danny Amendola is getting drafted. And it says the tight ends here are Jesse James and these guys, but the guy you want who's not on this list right here is TJ Hawkinson. He's a rookie last year. He's the starting tight end for the Lions, but he's not on this list because he just came off the COVID-19 list in Detroit's training camp. So he didn't make this list right here, but he is on the team. He is practicing, and he's worth a flyer at tight end this year. So let's head over and check out over on Fantasy Football Calculator where some of these guys are going in their upcoming drafts. Here we are in Fantasy Football Calculator. As you can see, the first Lion off the board this year is Kenny Golladay. I do like him a lot. DeAndre Swift's not going as the second Lion until basically the end of round 5. So if you decide to take DeAndre Swift, his handcuff is over here going in like mid round 9. So that's great value. So if you take wide receivers, maybe in the first 3 or 4 rounds right here before you take DeAndre Swift, you get yourself a couple good wide receivers, a tight end, maybe even a quarterback, or another running back, and you decide to go with DeAndre Swift as your number 2 running back. You can easily get Kerryon Johnson later in the draft, so it does have some good strategy. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Lions' offensive line, but it is a decent offensive line. I would consider it probably average, so they are going to be able to run the ball. And Matthew Stafford right here going in round 10 is a good quarterback, along with some decent wide receivers and Golladay and Marvin Jones, so they can't just stack the line of scrimmage. And you got TJ Hawkinson down here in round 13. So I do like these running backs. Which one do you take? I would take both. If you get DeAndre Swift in round 5, I would make sure I get Kerryon Johnson up here and see which one starts the season and play them as needed the rest of the year. Let's take a look at another split backfield of a couple running backs I really like, and it's over there in the Green Bay Packers. Okay, here we are back checking out the split backfield in Green Bay. And they've got a really good running back, scored like 16 touchdowns last year, but it's a split backfield. The reason why he got all the carries last year is mostly because this guy here, Jamal Williams, was hurt. When he got hurt, I think he had a neck injury. I'm not sure of that, but he's back and healthy this year. That would be his handcuff. As you can see here, they drafted this guy, A.J. Dillon, in the 2nd round. So he's going to get some playing time. That's why I consider it a split backfield. But they still have this guy at quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Got to love him. And as far as Devontae Adams, that guy's going in the 1st round of most drafts. So that's their main players right there. As far as these other guys, these other wide receivers, it's hard to determine which one of these guys is going to be the number 2. I think they signed a Devin Funchess, but he's opted out because of COVID-19. Alan Lazard might be worth a flyer. I don't like any of these tight ends. And this offensive line here, they did lose their right tackle to the Los Angeles Chargers, Buaga, and this guy here, Bakhtari, he's really good. He's a pro, all pro. But the rest of the guys are just pretty average. So I'll give these guys a C+. It's an average offensive line, and they're going to blow some holes open for Aaron Jones just like they did. But these guys here, A.J. Dillon, and especially Jamal Williams, who's the handcuff to Aaron Jones, is going to steal some carries from him, some pass catching, and may even get a couple touchdowns. So you got to be careful with that. That's why it's a split backfield, although I really like Aaron Jones this year. Let's head over to Fantasy Football Calculator and see where these guys are going in early August before your draft. As you can see over here, Devontae Adams is going early at round 1. Aaron Jones is going in the middle of round 2. It's a good spot for him. I would consider taking those guys where they are. I'm not a big fan of ever taking a wide receiver early in round 1 or round 1 at all, but sometimes all the running backs you like are gone and you have no choice. That's why these split backfields are important. If you go wide receiver early, you can get these guys later in your draft because they have to share carries, as opposed to workhorse running backs who get the majority of the carries. Remember, volume is king in fantasy football. Other guys you should keep your eye on, and the Green Bay Packers are down here at Aaron Rodgers going in that round 8 area. He'll probably go even earlier in your drafts, maybe round 7. I do like him this year, although they should have probably added some wide receiver depth. They did, like I said, sign Devin Funges, who I didn't really care for. He was with the Colts last year and did nothing. Carolina Panthers before that and was a decent player, but he opted out because of COVID-19. And these are where some of the other players are going. A.J. Dillon, who's part of this split backfield, going around 12. And Alan Lazard is probably the second or third best receiver on this team, is going down there around 14. And those are the players I'd probably be drafting, and those are the order that they're going in. Let's head over and check out another split backfield of some really young players I really like, and it's over there in Indianapolis. Okay, here we are checking out the Indianapolis Colts split backfield, and we started out with Marlon Mack. He's the veteran who's been around for years. He's in the last year of a contract, so they may use him a lot. He's going up against the rookie who I really like, who we previewed in our rookie draft special, Jonathan Taylor. He's from Wisconsin. He was drafted early in last year's draft, and he scored about 50 touchdowns and ran for over 6,000 yards in 3 years at Wisconsin, so he's a player. And then you got Nyheim Hines, who is a pass-catching specialist out of the backfield, and he's going to get some playing time. But this is a split backfield, and they managed to nab Phillip Rivers from the Los Angeles Chargers. He's a good quarterback. I think he's an upgrade over Jacoby Brissett. I definitely like their offensive line here. I mean, this is a B-plus material. Costanzo, Nelson, Kelly. I mean, that's a good trio on the left side. And these two guys on the right side aren't bad, with some good backups along the way. As far as wide receivers go, T.Y. Hilton, big fan of his, but he's hurt all the time. He's in training camp right now. He's not even practicing because of a hamstring. Michael Pittman Jr. is a rookie who they drafted early, who can be a big-time player. And Paris Campbell out of Ohio State, I like him. And Zach Pascal and Marcus Johnson. These guys can all play. So Phillip Rivers has some wide receivers he can throw the ball to. So this team's gonna play well. If you're looking at a split backfield here between Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack, it'd be a good idea to get both those guys, and I like them both a lot. So let's head over to Fantasy Football Calculator and see what they are going in the average draft position. Okay, here we are on Fantasy Football Calculator talking about Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack and the Indianapolis Colts. Clearly, Jonathan Taylor's going in the early 4th round. Some fantasy dynasty leagues, he's like the first pick overall. Clyde Edwards-Helaire maybe might be going before him, but this might be your second or third guy taken in those drafts. But he's going here at the end of the 4th round. He's followed up by T.Y. Hilton, and you can see here that Marlon Mack's not going to round 7. So if you go wide receiver early in these 3 rounds, or maybe one running back, couple wide receivers, you can get Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack to fill out your wide receiver running back core for a little bit to give you a good start. As you can see, the rest of the guys that we talked about are later in the draft. Some of these guys are worth taking, others maybe not. I can't suggest really any of these guys for sure, including Phillip Rivers. But I do like Jonathan Taylor and his handcuff Marlon Mack as maybe an RB2 and RB3 on my team. And I would consider doing that this year because they have a really good offensive line and they're going to move the ball behind Phillip Rivers. Let's head down to Miami and check out the split backfield that the Dolphins are going to put on the field in 2020. Okay, here we are checking out the split backfield down in the Miami Dolphins. As you can see here, they have Jordan Howard, who's been in Philadelphia and Chicago. I'm not real high on this guy. I've had him on some teams, and he has absolutely killed me. Another guy they have that they got from San Francisco is Matt Breida. And he can catch the ball in the backfield, so it might be worth a flyer on one of these two guys, especially if you need a running back because you went early in your drafts. Maybe you decided to go with one of the two good quarterbacks in Kansas City or in Baltimore, and you followed it up by some really good receivers or a tight end. Hey, you're going to be stuck with this backfield. And I'll tell you right now, it's not a bad one because Jordan Howard's going to get a lot of goal line carries. And Matt Breida is going to catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. Problem is, which quarterback is it going to be? Is it going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick, who had a good year last year? I'm going to tell you right now, man, in the playoffs, if you had put of your fantasy league last year, Ryan Fitzpatrick in there, I'm going to tell you what, he had a good playoff run and may have helped some people win some championships last year. And then they drafted this guy, Tua Tagovailoa, out of Alabama. He's kind of coming back from a hip injury, so I'm not sure he'll even play this year. We'll see. And, of course, they've got Josh Rosen, who was a first-round draft choice. So they got a lot of quarterbacks on their team, just questionable running backs. Their offensive line here is like that C-plus kind of area. They drafted well. They got a bunch of guys here. So they're going to have a lot of competition at offensive line. Whether these guys will be any good or not, we'll have to see when the season starts. I think Jordan Howard's on the right team. So is Matt Breida. I really, really like Mike Gesicki. I think if Ryan Fitzpatrick's the quarterback, look for Mike Gesicki to have a pretty good season. If I was drafting today, I would probably take him as my second or third tight end. So you should consider that. And his wide receivers here, Devontae Parker, I've had him on my team in the past, and he's killed me. But I don't know what happened to him last year. This guy became a top, 15 wide receiver all of a sudden. I mean, he was pretty good. He had some 30-point games with Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing him the ball. So he might be worth a flyer. And these other guys, I would question all these guys. I'm not sure. They lost a player recently because of COVID-19. Preston Williams, I really like him. But the problem with Preston Williams is he had an ACL tear last year in the middle of the season. With those injuries, that usually takes a year, but I do like him. And if he doesn't get rushed back, he could be a player this year or down the road. Let's head over and check out where some of these guys are going on Fantasy Football Calculator to see if we're interested. Here we are in Fantasy Football Calculator, and it's never good when your first player on your team is taken in round 6. That's not good. You might want to consider drafting any of these guys, but because they all go so late, they can add to the value of your entire roster, which is why I would consider taking some of these guys. Devontae Parker is the first player going, and somewhere in round 6 or maybe even round 7, if you can get Devontae Parker, it'd probably be a good idea. He did have a good year last year, and maybe figured out how to be a pro. The other people we were talking about, Jordan Howard and Matt Breida, are right here going around 7 and 8. Let's say you need a RB2 or 3 on your team because you went heavy in these early rounds at wide receiver, tight end, quarterback. It happens. Take the best player available, and the value may lead to the point where you're not taking a second or third running back and you need more running backs. This backfield here might help you. And like I said earlier, I kind of would consider Mike Gesicki as maybe my second or third tight end I would put on my team because I think he might have a breakout year. And I do like him. He's out of Penn State, and he's very athletic. and he had a decent year last year at the end of the season with Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing him the ball. We've got a couple more teams we're going to look at for our split backfield. So let's head over and check out the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, here we are checking out the Pittsburgh Steelers split backfield. I really wanted to call James Conner a workhorse, but I got to tell you, he is a workhorse. So he was borderline for me. I mean, Benny Snell Jr. is a no James Conner, but if you needed a handcuff, it would be Benny Snell Jr. They also have a guy named Jalen Samuels. For some reason, they don't have him on this list. I would consider drafting him also late in your draft. But this rookie right here, I would remember this name, Anthony McFarland. He's out of Maryland. Don't be surprised if you pick him up on your waiver wire because this kid can play football. And I watched him play against Ohio State. I'm going to tell you what, this kid had over 200 yards, and he was the best player on the field that day. So don't be surprised if he has a good year. But we're talking split backfields and James Conner. Look, when he's playing well, he's a first, second round pick, and he's going in most leagues in the middle of the third round. So he's definitely worth a gamble on. Question is, can he stay healthy? Sometimes he can't. He's battled cancer and other things. COVID-19's got to be a huge, huge risk for him. So taking a chance on him could be a huge risk. But the rest of his team, as you can see here, Ben Roethlisberger's coming back. Hopefully he's healthy. If he is, he can fling the ball like Ben Roethlisberger, who's got to be pushing 40. The rest of these guys I don't care for. That's why Pittsburgh didn't do well last year. But if Ben's Ben, then you're going to have a good team. These wide receivers, J.J. Smith-Schuster is the guy I like. I really like Deontay Johnson. The rookie here, Chase Claypool, could be a player. He's a big boy, could play tight end, could play wide receiver out of Notre Dame. Don't be surprised if he's not drafted in your league. He's on the waiver wire in week 1 and someone goes after him. That's the reason why I might throw him on my roster at the end of a league draft. And this James Washington, I've had him on my teams the last couple years. I don't know. I think I'm giving up on him. He should be better than he is, and I'm not sure. Maybe he's just on the wrong team, but he's a good player, and he has these times where he's really good and other times he just doesn't show up. I can't figure out why. But as far as tight end goes, both these guys are pretty decent. If I was going to draft one, it would be Eric Ebron. Don't be surprised if he has a breakout year. He had one a couple years ago. Don't be surprised if Eric Ebron puts up some points. And when we talk about offensive line, Pittsburgh's got a B+. These guys are good. Villanueva, Wisniewski, Pouncey, DeCastro. I mean, come on. These 4 guys are going to blow holes in the defensive line for sure. Problem is, right tackle. They let some people get away. Who's going to fill the hole? It's hard to say, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. And I'm sure James Conner will have a good year. So let's head over to Fantasy Football Calculator and see just where James Conner and some of these other guys are going. Okay, here we are in Fantasy Football Calculator, and we're checking out the Pittsburgh Steelers split backfield with James Conner. And as you can see right here, he's going at the beginning of the 3rd round. I don't know. I'd be taking Mike Evans for sure before I took him. I'd probably take Leonard Fournette too before I took him. He's probably a little early for me here. I'd be checking him out down here, maybe in that Melvin Gordon, Le'Veon Bell area. I think those guys are all around the same point, end of the 3rd round, beginning of the 4th. Not that James Conner's not a good football player, good running back. Thing is the health situation, whether he's healthy, and it's a 3rd round pick. I really like him, but he just can't stay healthy. And his backups, you won't see any of his backups on this sheet anywhere. They're not there. Not Benny Snell, not Anthony McFarland, not Jalen Samuels. So the handcuff thing's not a big deal, which is a plus for James Conner. If you're going to take him, he's got to fall to you. Don't reach for him because you could be making a big mistake. I'd go for more of a sure bet, which Leonard Fournette probably is, Le'Veon Bell probably is, and I would say I would take them ahead of James Conner just because of the injury situation. I mean, the reason you like James Conner is because the offensive line and Ben Roethlisberger, and he's got good receivers. And this kid James Conner could catch 6-7 balls in one game. And that's no kidding. So that's why you like him. And he'd be worth the risk if he's 100% healthy. Let's see where some of the other players are going on this team. As you can see down here, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, I do like. Round 8's a little high. I'm looking in that round 9 or 10 for him. You see, you can always pick up Ben Roethlisberger in round 12. I've won championships with him in round 12. And Eric Ebron, you can get as your second or third tight end if you get one early. He might pan out, but he's a high risk. I don't know. Sometimes he plays well, sometimes he don't. I think Pittsburgh motivates him, and he plays well. So he might be worth a flyer late in your draft. Let's go down to Tampa Bay and check out what the Buccaneers got going on with their split backfield. I mean, they did pick up Tom Brady. They got a great wide receiving core, and it's worth checking out their running back situation. Let's head over there and do that. Okay, here we are down in Tampa Bay, checking out their split backfield, starting out with this guy, Ronald Jones II. I don't know. This guy is an enigma. I mean, he's a puzzle. I don't know. He didn't get to play a lot because he couldn't pick up the blitz. And what I mean by that is when linebackers and safeties would come in on a blitz to hit the quarterback, he would miss protection or not be able to pick it up. So he didn't get a lot of playing time his first couple years. But then he started to kind of get the idea of how to do it. And when he did, he became a more complete player. But now that he's got Tom Brady as his quarterback, look, the number one goal on offense is protect Tom Brady if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because you don't have anybody else. I mean, Blaine Gabbert's not going to replace Tom Brady. He could still play football. I mean, he's 40-some years old, but hey, he's still Tom Brady, Hall of Famer, 5-time, 6-time Super Bowl champ. I mean, this guy's the man, right? GOAT, right? So Ronald Jones has to show he can do that. But he had glimpses last year that he could. And if a guy's going to break out, it could be Ronald Jones. So don't be surprised. But he's got this guy teaching him how to play football. LaShawn McCoy. I mean, LaShawn McCoy has seen better days. But he wasn't brought in and paid decent money to run the football. He's probably brought in to show this kid how to play football. And I think it might work. So don't be surprised if Ronald Jones turns out to be a sleeper pick you should be taking. If you look at his wide receivers, I'm going to tell you what, between wide receivers and tight ends, this is a good core. Tom Brady's got some players to throw the ball to, which is why he went to Tampa. Chris Godwin, love him. Mike Evans, love him. You probably don't know much about these guys. Justin Watson, Scotty Miller. I like both these guys. These guys are possession receivers. Tom Brady's going to love these two. These tight ends, well, Tom Brady's got 3 tight ends. Not 1, not 2, but 3. O.J. Howard has a lot to prove, but he didn't exactly have a great quarterback throwing in the ball. Jameis Winston's a backup over in New Orleans. He wasn't accurate. Threw a ton of interceptions. Well, the difference between Tom Brady and Winston is huge. Tom Brady puts the ball where you can catch it, and O.J. Howard's going to be able to catch this ball because it's going to hit him in the gut every time. So I'd look for O.J. Howard to have a big year. Rob Gronkowski, look, he's not the Rob Gronkowski of old. He didn't play last year, and the year before that he wasn't doing as great, missed a lot of time. I mean, the year before that had a great year, but I'm not expecting him to have the all-pro year. I can see him having big games, but maybe might miss some time. Cameron Brate's still quality tight end. I think Tom Brady's going to love this guy because what does he do? He gets open and catches the ball. So it wouldn't surprise me if Cameron Brate was the next Rob Gronkowski. So don't draft Rob Gronkowski too early in your league because his career, he's in a Hall of Famer, but his career might be on the downside. And as far as offensive lines go, this is pretty good. This is B+. Donovan Smith's a good left tackle. Arlie Marpet's a good guard. Ryan Jensen's a good center. Alec Kappa and Tristan Wirfs is a decent tackle. So these guys are going to be able to blow some holes open. So I would even consider Ronald Jones his ADP is not that bad. As a matter of fact, let's go over and check out his ADP and see where these guys are going on fantasyfootballcalculator.com. Okay, here we are on fantasyfootballcalculator.com and checking out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've actually got a really good team. Their defense is top 10 in my opinion. Their offense, top 10 in my opinion. Coach, top 10 in my opinion. This team is going to make a playoff run if everybody's healthy and COVID-19 doesn't mess it up. And as you can see here, Chris Godwin going late second round. I like him better than a lot of these players. I'd be taking him earlier than this. I do like Mike Evans too. I wouldn't take them both just in case Tom Brady gets hurt, but I do like both of them. As you can see here, we're talking split backfields for running backs. The next player you want to look at is down here, Ronald Jones. I mean, he's going at the beginning of round 6 because round 5 comes around, round 6 is in here. I would not reach on this guy. If he falls to me in round 6 or maybe you're down here in round 7, I would take him as my maybe third running back, second running back. I don't know. That's a reach because he hasn't done anything, but he might. And that's why people are taking him in round 6. It's a little too early for me on Rob Gronkowski. I don't think I'd be taking Rob Gronkowski there. He might have a good year. I look for him to come out of the gate strong, and then there could be injuries. He's got a lot of injuries. As you can see right here, Tom Brady is going in the 8th round, kind of like in the middle. That's a good spot for him. He's 40-some years old. If you like to wait on quarterback, I could see why you would take Tom Brady. He's got a good team surrounding him. That's probably why he left New England. He went to a team with a lot of talent and a good defense. Don't be surprised if he has a good year, if he stays healthy. Question is, these running backs, I'm surprised they didn't sign Devontae Freeman, but they went with LaShawn McCoy. Mostly because LaShawn McCoy is willing to tutor Ronald Jones, who they believe in. That's why you might want to consider Ronald Jones in your drafts. As you can see right here, the backup to Ronald Jones, LaShawn McCoy, you can get him later in your draft, so that adds value to Ronald Jones. So if you go early in your draft, wide receiver, like these guys have done, and tight end, quarterback or something, you can get this backfield late in your draft, adds value, and that's why split backfields are so important to know. Okay, there you have it. We're back on our website, fantasyfootballredemptionrehab.com. We just got done previewing our split backfields in fantasy football. When you get a chance, go to our website, come down here and check out our workhorse running backs. Those are the running backs you get early in your draft. If you're going to go with the split backfield, like we talked about here, you could probably get those in the middle, late rounds, and we're going to do a video on committee running backs that we haven't done. If you've watched these 2 videos, you're probably wondering where some of these running backs are. Well, a committee backfield is something you want to avoid, but they do have value in fantasy football. So when we get that video done, you may want to go to our website and check that out too. I'm Buster Brown. The show's Redemption Rehab. Good luck.